saw my mother crying for a couple of weeks, and I kept asking her, "What are you crying about?" And I'd cry too. And then I came home from school one day, and where's Donald? And Donald was gone. And then as soon as the first Sunday of the month came, we went to see him in Laconia. And that's when my mother noticed his clothes were absolutely dirty and with saliva and food, and the shirt, she took the shirt off, it could almost stand by itself.
For a while, it functioned as a fairly decent environment, and it was really the only service option that the state offered at the time, a long time ago. And eventually, though, it was forced to serve more people than the capacity would allow.
We went every first Sunday of every month because that's the only time we could visit. And my mother would bring a whole exchange of clothes and wash him up and redress him and take the dirty clothes home and wash them.
You have toilets with no toilet seat and no toilet paper and no privacy for people. And so it was that kind of a place. And in the old days, people used to call it the snake pit. It was that bad at certain times.
And I happened to look into the area where the beds were, and it was just a whole big, huge hall full of beds side by side, and it was very smelly, and there was people urinating, and there was people sitting in their feces, and I remember that like it was yesterday.
Institutions are very, very difficult places for people with disabilities, as well as the staff.
And when my mother passed away, in fact, she passed away in my arms, and the last request was that I take care of Donald, and I promised I would, and I have.
One wishes that people like Donald and others didn't have to spend some of their lives at the state school, at the institution, but it happened.
The center has given Donald the most normal kind of life he could possibly have with his disabilities. He's in the community, he goes shopping, he goes to movies, there's anything that he doesn't do that most people are, taking for granted and doing, and it's been a wonderful experience, and I only regret that I didn't pursue it earlier.
When deinstitutionalization was in full swing, everybody was returning back to their home community, so Donald naturally was coming back to Nashua, and that was in 1994, and moved into his own apartment with a roommate, and shortly after that his sister Marjorie decided that she would build a in-law apartment for Donald, and he's been there he lives downstairs from her. He's got his own place and has a roommate.
When I came down to the Nashua Center for my interview, he was outside selling flowers, and I approached him to say hello and see what he was doing, and he smiled at me, and I went in praying that it was him that I was going to interview for. People assume that because you're physically disabled that you're mentally disabled, and that is just not true. Donald is as smart as anyone in this room. He just has trouble communicating. His words are not always clear, but his expression is clear. If he's mad, you know. If he's glad, you know. If he's sad, you know. He's a joy.
I think that anybody that's gotten to know Donald never forgets him. And as a matter of fact, most people stay part of his life.
It's almost 20 years of being great friends and great co-workers, and it's been the greatest experience of my life. Because I feel like if I don't come to work that day, I know he'd be looking for me.
I consider him my family. I never had no family, and I consider Donald my family. He's the brother I never had. When I met Donald, you know, he showed me that it was okay to be me. As you know, he accepted me as me, as long as I accepted him as him. And God works in mysterious ways.
When I think of Donald Deschenes, I think of him as a very kind, caring, and compassionate gentleman.
He's groovy.
Happy guy, always in good spirits.
Nice guy.
The great smile and a great personality.
I think of Donald greeting me every time I come in the door and back to my office.
Charming.
Happy guy, good friend. Happy guy, good friend.
Donald has a great smile.
Beautiful. Good. Love it.
You always get a huge handshake with a thank you so much. That's who he is.